Good morning, Professor Dosi. We are in Pisa at the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna to debate the issue of austerity and its policy implications at the conference Debunking Austerity, supported by the Institute of Economics of Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna and INET, Institute for New Economic Thinking. Professor Dosi, we are in Italy, a country which has undertaken financial and other political reforms in a period of economic crisis and austerity, as many say. Can I ask you what is the result, the cost and benefits of austerity over the last 5 years?
Well, the benefit is easy, zero. The costs have been enormous, and I think that austerity policy have shown that they are self-defeating. All countries that undertook massive austerity programs have now a GDP per capita that is lower than at the beginning of the crisis. Industrial production is much lower than at the beginning of the crisis. Unemployment that has skyrocketed, and paradoxically enough, but not paradoxically, the debt to GDP ratio that is higher than before. Why? Well, it is obvious. If the multiplier is greater than 1, cutting government expenditure implies a fall in the GDP more than proportional.
Professor, some international institutions like OECD claim that Portugal and Greece have started the economic recovery in 2014. But what is correct about the implications of austerity in those countries?
Well, I mean, it is there is a lower bound that is zero. So you keep falling. Sooner or later, you got to stop falling. The big issue is, but after the cure, do you feel better than before the cure or not? And the answer, unequivocal answer is, you feel worse. One thing that one must say is that even in the most virtuous countries, like Germany and Grosse Deutschland, the Netherlands, Austria, etc., the industrial production is basically at the level of pre-crisis level. Germany is basically not growing this year. It's growing some fraction of a percentage point. Austerity policy is self-defeating also for the countries that are advocates of the policy itself. I think it is totally suicidal. There is no economic motivation whatsoever for these masochistic European policies.
But is there a methodological mistake in arguing that the results of austerity measures are positive? Is it a mistake done by policy institutes, or just political propaganda?
This is a good question. This is a good question because, I mean, it is difficult to imagine intelligent people that look at the situation of Greece or Portugal, look at this little blip up in growth, and they say the economy has been successful, the cure has been successful. If these are intelligent people, it means that the level of fanaticism the disregard for the overall experience, for the overall data, is really impressive. And I think that there is some religious aspect in that. I mean, there is a profound belief that it can only be that way because debts must be paid, because you need to get your house in order. There is underlying, there is a fanatical faith in the virtue of the market, and therefore there is a sort of ideology according to which it is enough to release everything, tying down the economy, and it will spring up.
Would you, are you suggesting that there is an underlying class conflict in Europe?
Well, there is an underlying class conflict everywhere, well recognized by people like Warren Buffett in the States, saying, well, there is a class struggle and the capitalists have won. And among capitalists, the banker more than, especially. My impression is that this goes even beyond issues of class conflict. I mean, was the policy of Brüning in Germany in the early 30s the one that produced mass unemployment and induced the rise to power of Hitler a pro-capitalist policy? I think it was simply a stupid policy, a stupid and myopic policy. And these policies, I think, contain an enormous amount of dogmatism. And yes, of course, they have a class connotation. Of course, they imply recipes like you, or Southern Europe, should undertake an internal devaluation, meaning you should lower your wages. While the most natural thing would be that the virtuous countries should undertake an internal revaluation. I mean, the German worker would be happy to have their salaries increased. The trade balance of Southern Europe would be better off. It would be a win-win situation, except without perhaps the German capitalist.
Do you think that there is a link between this position in economic policy and the scientific debate in the economics profession?
I think that there is. I think that there is as you know, the workhorse of macroeconomics, that is dynamic stochastic general equilibrium, is the ideological workhorse, mind you, because of course all central banks have it, all banks have it because it's fashionable to have it. But as in the recent discussion came out, no bank uses that model to make the forecast. They have it more for prestige reason than anything else. In any case, that model is also a big ideological machinery. And by grounding it into a representative agent or a series of representative agents, it makes implicitly an enormous commitment to the fact that coordination is there. As I was saying today at the conference, lack of coordination would imply the representative agent that is somewhat schizophrenic, that goes to himself and asks to work and say, no, you cannot work, etc. So there is a profound commitment in the modeling to some equilibrium assumption. Then it is true that people add frictions, adjustment cost, whistles, bells, etc. But the core of the model is a model that says leave the market to itself, and if there are no frictions, everything is okay.
So empirical relevance is not a relevant factor in the scientific debate in mainstream economics?
Well, there is, I mean, that is very interesting, the question, and very complicated, because I have many colleagues that claim that the exercises of calibration of DSG, dynamic stochastic general equilibrium model, are actually bringing the empirics into the model. In reality, there are horrible exercises of voodoo, in which you assign value to the functions that characterize the various representative agents in ways that basically make the model run and not collapse, with a lot of voodoo. I mean, the fact that in these models it is very difficult, if not impossible, to acknowledge that there is involuntary employment says everything about these models. You don't need to be an economist to realize that there is involuntary unemployment.
You have worked on an alternative approach to macroeconomics for more than 10 years. Your models, the agent-based models, have heterogeneity and other important aspects which are taken into account. Do you think that adding many of the factors that are not considered in the DSG model can give a more empirical relevance or adequacy to a macroeconomic model? And do you think that agent-based models can give a more complete picture of reality in such a way to get important policy conclusions?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, even if agent-based models are at their infancy, I think that they are the alternative to DSG. The major advantage of agent-based model is that they've got multiple agents. And therefore, then you can make, of course, bad models and good models. But the fact that you've got multiple interacting agents allows the possibility of coordination failures. After all, I mean, having the GDP at full employment, or having the GDP with an employment of 15%, you can think of it as a massive systemic coordination failure. But in order to account for this coordination failure, you need many agents. Many agents that interact in the product market, in the labor market, and in the financial market. And there it's very handy, for example, to robustly account for crises of different duration, financial crisis, crashes, bankruptcies. It's a natural instrument to study a genuinely dynamic economy.
And what are the implications of agent-based modeling for tackling the issue of austerity?
Well, we have recently finished a paper studying on the ground of our agent-based model, studying precisely the austerity. And if you don't believe your eyes, so you don't believe by looking around in Europe that austerity is self-defeating, in our model these are precisely the robust conclusions. Austerity is self-defeating. And it comes up very robustly for a whole range of parameters. It shows that With austerity, you don't go anywhere. And this is derived, is not the beauty of agent-based models, is that these are conclusions that come out as emergent properties. You don't put them in the model.
This is, I believe, a major difference between the DSG approach, when, in which you add up all the frictions to the model without really explaining the origin, with an approach in which frictions are emergent from the behavior of agents.
I would not even say frictions. I mean, they are property of the system. I mean, the philosophy of agent-based model is that agents do to each other reasonable things that you observe. I don't know, they charge prices that are on the ground of a markup. They decide their investment on the ground of the expectation of how much they are going to sell in the future. They are going to sell, not the aggregate variable. People search for work, and sometimes they find it, and sometimes they don't find it. So, for example, if you come out with a very high unemployment rate, this is not in any strict sense the result of a friction. It's the result of the very working of a decentralized system.
I see. Professor Dosi, we thank you for accepting this interview, and we will listen to tomorrow's speeches at the conference in Pisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.